Chapter 6. After witnessing the strength of community during the Great Depression, tonight we join Emma and Cory as they meet Hannah Mitchell, a World War II nurse serving on the front lines. In a makeshift field hospital on Christmas Eve, 1944, they'll learn how small acts of kindness can light up the darkest nights. The shimmering mist peeled away like gossamer curtains this time, revealing a scene that materialized around Cory and Emma with startling clarity. A bustling campaign office thrumming with the energy of revolution. Walls sprouted before their eyes, adorned with a patchwork of vibrant posters that seemed to shout their messages. Votes for women and equality now. Each slogan a battle cry in bold, defiant letters. The air crackled with an electric energy. Hope and determination intertwining like invisible vines, their tendrils reaching out to brush against the siblings' skin. A gramophone in the corner sputtered to life, its brass horn unfurling like a flower to release the tinny notes of Rise Up Women. The melody wove through the air, breathing life into the very walls around them, each note a heartbeat of the burgeoning movement. Emma's eyes widened, drinking in every detail as her fingers trailed over a stack of leaflets on a nearby desk. The paper felt rough beneath her touch, the ink still fresh enough to leave smudges on her fingertips, tangible proof of the world they had entered. "Cory," she whispered, her voice a mix of awe and excitement. "I think we're in the 1910s. Before Cory could respond, a voice cut through the ambient noise of the office, clear and commanding as a bell. "Welcome, young friends. Have you come to join the cause?" The siblings turned, their movements almost synchronized, to see a woman in her early 30s approaching them. Her hair was coiled in an intricate style that reminded them of Amelia, and she wore a striking sash in purple, white, and green, colors that danced in Emma's memory from the pages of her history books, a vibrant banner of the suffragette movement. "I'm Elizabeth Blackwell," the woman introduced herself, extending a hand calloused from countless hours of writing and marching. Her eyes shone with a passionate fire, a stark contrast to the weariness etched in the fine lines around them. "And you've picked quite an exciting time to visit our little headquarters." Cory and Emma exchanged glances, a silent conversation of raised eyebrows and widened eyes conveying their mix of excitement and nervousness. Pixie, ever present at their feet, wagged her tail encouragingly, her fur shimmering with otherworldly light that went unnoticed by Elizabeth. We're not exactly from around here," Cory began hesitatingly, his words carefully chosen. Elizabeth's eyebrow arched with curiosity, a gesture that spoke volumes. "Oh? Do tell." As the siblings recounted their magical journey on the Christmas Express, Elizabeth listened with rapt attention, her expression shifting like scenes in a magic lantern show, from surprise to wonder, from disbelief to acceptance. "Well," she finally said with a smile, "it seems the spirits of progress work in mysterious ways. Perhaps you're here to learn about our struggle and to take those lessons back to your own time." Emma nodded eagerly, her entire body seeming to lean forward with curiosity. "Could you tell us more about what you're fighting for?" Elizabeth's eyes ignited with a fierce inner fire, her gaze burning with the intensity of 1,000 unspoken dreams of equality. "Of course, my dear. Sit down, both of you. It's time you learned about the great injustice of our age and the women who are determined to right it." As Cory and Emma settled into worn wooden chairs that creaked with the weight of history, Elizabeth perched on the edge of her desk. Her voice took on the cadence of a practiced orator, each word ringing with the power of hard-won conviction. Imagine, if you will, a world where half the population is denied a fundamental right, the right to have a say in the laws that govern their lives. That's the world we live in, where women are seen as too delicate, too uninformed, too emotional to participate in the democratic process. She gestured to a framed photograph on her desk, the sepia tones coming to life with her words. It showed a group of women marching with banners held high, their faces a mix of determination and hope. But we're proving them wrong, day by day. We're fighting for our right to vote, yes, but it's about so much more than that. It's about equality under the law, about having the same opportunities as men in education, in the workforce, in every aspect of life. As Elizabeth spoke, the office around them seemed to blur and fade, like watercolors running together. In its place, vivid scenes from the suffrage movement sprang to life. Cory and Emma watched in awe, their senses overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of history unfolding before them. Women marched in parades, their banners snapping in the wind, feet pounding the pavement in a rhythm that echoed through time. They saw suffragettes picketing the White House, their silent vigil a powerful testament to their resolve. The scene shifted, and they witnessed the horror of force feedings in prison, feeling the pain and determination of the women who endured such treatment for their cause. "It's not an easy fight," Elizabeth continued, her voice tinged with both pride and weariness, each word carrying the weight of personal sacrifice. "We face ridicule, arrest, even violence, but we persist because we know our cause is just." Emma leaned forward, her eyes shining with empathy and admiration. "And do you think you'll succeed?" Elizabeth's smile was bittersweet, a complex mixture of hope and resignation. "I hope so, with all my heart, but I fear I may not live to see it. You see, I died in the influenza pandemic of 1918, just 2 years before the 19th Amendment was ratified. So close, yet so far from seeing our dream realized." A heavy silence fell over the room, thick as fog, as the weight of Elizabeth's words sank in. But then the suffragette's expression brightened. "But that's enough about me," she said, clapping her hands together with renewed vigor. "You two are here for a reason. I'm sure of it. So tell me, how would you like to experience a bit of suffragette action firsthand?" Cory and Emma exchanged excited glances, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. "What did you have in mind?" Cory asked, his voice quivering with barely contained enthusiasm. Elizabeth's grin was positively mischievous, a glimpse of the young rebel beneath the seasoned activist. "How do you feel about joining a protest?" As the siblings nodded eagerly, the world around them began to shift once more. The office faded away like mist before the morning sun, its edges blurring and dissolving. In its place, a busy city street began to materialize, the sounds of horses' hooves on cobblestones and the distant cries of street vendors growing louder. The air filled with the scent of coal smoke and possibility, and Cory and Emma felt the thrill of anticipation coursing through them. They were about to step into the very pages of history, to experience firsthand what it meant to fight for equality in a time when it was anything but guaranteed. The Christmas Express had brought them to this moment, and they were ready to embrace it with open hearts and minds, knowing that the lessons they learned here would echo through time, all the way back to their own world. The bustling city street materialized around them like a painting come to life, each detail sharpening into focus. The air vibrated with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the sputtering of early automobiles, a cacophony of progress and tradition colliding. Cory and Emma found themselves standing on a busy sidewalk, the rough cobblestones beneath their feet a stark contrast to the plush carpets of the magical train. Elizabeth materialized beside them, her eyes ablaze with a fire that seemed to ignite the very air around her. "Here," Elizabeth said, pressing placards into their hands. The wood was rough and warm, imbued with the passion of countless marches. Emma's fingers traced the bold letters proclaiming "Votes for Women," while Cory's placard demanded "Equality is democracy." The words almost pulsed with energy, each letter a beacon of hope. Elizabeth leaned in close, her voice low and urgent, carrying the weight of 1,000 whispered plans. "Now remember," she instructed, her breath warm against their ears, "we're here to make sure our voices are heard, but peacefully. No matter what anyone says or does, we must remain dignified. Our composure in the face of adversity is our strength." Emma nodded, her grip tightening on the placard until her knuckles whitened. Cory's face was a canvas of emotions, nervousness painting his furrowed brow, determination hardening the set of his jaw. Pixie sat at their feet, her tail swishing against the cobblestones, her eyes gleaming with human understanding. "Ready?" Elizabeth asked, her voice filled with anticipation. At their nods, she raised her voice in a clear, strong chant that resonated around them. "Equality is our right. We won't give up the fight." Cory and Emma joined in, their young voices blending with Elizabeth and those of other suffragettes who seemed to materialize from the very mist of history around them. As they marched down the street, Emma felt a surge of exhilaration within her, electric and intoxicating. She was no longer just an observer of history, but a part of its very fabric, her heart beating in time with the rhythmic chants. But the thrill was short-lived, shattered like glass by the harsh reality of the time. As they rounded a corner, they were met with a wall of jeers and boos from a group of onlookers, their faces twisted with disdain and anger. "Go home and mind your children," one man shouted, his words lashing out like whips. "Politics is no place for ladies," another sneered, his contemptuous gaze raking over the marchers. Emma felt her cheeks burn, a flame of indignation licking at her insides. She opened her mouth to retort, the words bubbling up like lava, but Elizabeth laid a gentle hand on her arm. The touch was cool and calming, a balm on her anger and irritation. "Remember," Elizabeth murmured, her voice barely audible above the din, yet somehow crystal clear. "Our dignity is our weapon. We'll change their minds not with angry words, but with our unshakable resolve." As they continued their march, the world around them began to blur and shift. One moment they were parading down a sunlit street, golden light glinting off shop windows. The next they were standing in the pouring rain outside the White House, cold droplets mingling with the ink on their signs demanding President Wilson support women's suffrage. Then, with a disorienting lurch, they found themselves in a dark, dank cell. The change was so abrupt that Emma gasped, the musty air filling her lungs as she instinctively reached for Cory's hand. The cold, rough stone of the walls seemed to close in around them, a stark contrast to the open streets they had just occupied. "This," Elizabeth said softly, her voice echoing in the gloom, "is where many of us ended up, arrested for daring to demand our rights." As Elizabeth spoke about the hunger strikes and force-feeding that suffragettes endured, her words painted vivid, haunting pictures in the air. Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, hot and insistent, as the full weight of the suffragettes' sacrifices settled over her like a heavy cloak. "But why?" Cory asked, his voice hoarse, crackling with emotion. "Why go through all this? Why not just wait for things to change on their own?" Elizabeth's smile was sad but determined, a beacon of hope in the dimness of the cell. "Because, my dear boy, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Every right we enjoy today was fought for by those who came before us." As she spoke, the scenes around them continued to shift, a kaleidoscope of history unfolding before their eyes. Emma watched in awe as women from all walks of life came together, their faces a tapestry of determination, fear, hope, and courage. They were fighting not just for their right to vote, but for a fundamental recognition of their humanity and equality. "The torch has been passed to your generation," Elizabeth said, her form beginning to fade and dissolve into a gentle, shimmering mist. The magical train car slowly reappeared around them, its plush seats and warm lighting a stark contrast to the harsh realities they had just witnessed. Never stop fighting for what's right, even when the path seems impossible. Every voice, every action counts. As Elizabeth's ghost disappeared entirely, Emma and Cory found themselves back in their seats on the Christmas Express, both lost in the labyrinth of their thoughts. The rhythmic click-clack of the train's wheels on the tracks seemed to echo the marching feet of the suffragettes. After a moment of silence as heavy and meaningful as a volume of history, Emma spoke up, her voice quiet but firm, resonating with newfound purpose. "I used to think women's rights were just old history, but it's not all fixed yet, is it?" Cory shook his head, his eyes distant, as if still seeing the scenes they had witnessed. "No, I don't think so. Women still get paid less sometimes, and there aren't as many in government or running big companies. And in some places, women still don't have the same rights as men." Emma nodded, a determined glint in her eye. "We've come so far, but there's still work to do, and it's up to us to continue that work." As the train chugged along its magical track, cutting through the fabric of time and space, Emma and Cory sat in contemplative silence. The weight of Elizabeth's words settled over them like a mantle of responsibility. They had experienced a pivotal moment in history, and it had changed them, reinforcing their understanding of the world and their place in it. The spirit of the suffragettes, their courage, their perseverance, their unwavering belief in equality, had kindled a spark in both siblings, a flame that burned bright with the promise of future change. Pixie nuzzled their hands, her fur still carrying a hint of the stardust from their magical journey. They heard a soft, kind laugh and the voice of their sweet companion. Another lesson learned well, both of you. The past has much to teach us about shaping the future. As the lights in the carriage dimmed once more, casting dancing shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of ages past, Cory and Emma smiled at one another. The approaching twilight signaled the imminent arrival of their next ghostly passenger, another chapter in their extraordinary journey. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they were ready to face them with the courage and conviction inspired by Elizabeth Blackwell and the suffragettes who had fought so hard for a better world. The Christmas Express continued its magical journey, carrying not just two young passengers, but the hopes, dreams, and unfinished work of generations. As the train whistle sounded, its cry echoing through time, Cory and Emma knew that their adventure was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. Hannah's dedication to healing continues to inspire. Tomorrow, our journey leads us to the civil rights movement, where music and hope create powerful change. Check out all of the other books in the Magical Papillon series of cozy mysteries on Amazon now.